Thank you, Nathan Seavey, for coming on the Green Beverly channel, as we call it. So
My pleasure. My pleasure.
fantastic. We're going to make you famous, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right. Well, you are a real estate agent, you're a resident in Beverly, and you care about helping people go green. I would love to hear, I mean, it's one thing to have nice intentions, and wouldn't
Right.
it be nice if we all went green? But, you see people buying homes, selling homes. Do people actually value green upgrades? Like before I go spending money on heat pump system, what are you seeing in the
Right.
marketplace right now about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So green stuff is huge. People love it, and homes sell above comparable homes if they have green infrastructure or even green landscaping. Um, I think that's two reasons. One, it really is more comfortable to have mini splits in the house where you're having air conditioning in these old houses that typically don't have ducting. So it is um, quite comfortable to live in a place like that. And it's also economic. So if you have um, solar panels or geothermal, if you do the numbers, and I do the numbers with folks, it's actually quite economical to have electric heat with solar panels. And also, I think the second big reason or the third big reason is because people feel a sense of responsibility towards the environment right now, particularly young people who are coming up and they're seeing these big changes and they're worried about their future. Um, sea rise in the next 20 years, they're going to be around for that. So they're really looking for houses that have the capability to be greened, um, almost as a badge of honor. I see it particularly too with gardens because it's sort of a simple first step. People are doing pollinator gardens everywhere. It's very in vogue to have a pollinator garden. So yeah, absolutely. People are valuing the greening of real estate above and beyond, the economic value of it, which is there, the comfort value. They're really valuing it as the future.
Yeah, and I would love to just pause a moment and really define what green upgrades could be. So obviously you have energy, green energy, you
Right.
have gardens, and honestly, I bought this place in October, and one of the things I loved is that their lawn has been organic. Their lawn and the garden has been organic for the last like 16 years or
Oh,
something like
awesome.
that was a huge plus. But then you also have things like the materials that people use, for insulation, for example, or insulation in general. That's another aspect of keeping a place green, even if maybe the materials are not necessarily green. The fact that it's insulated makes it more green. You have health aspects, when you use paint.
Right.
Is it low VOC, no VOC? Because what I've
Right.
learned is one of the biggest pollutants on the planet is paint.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's no joke. So walk me through the different ways there could be green upgrades to a home.
Sure. Well, I'll start with sort of new construction. There are lots of new materials, like you said, coming out, but also new construction methods that allow for greater amounts of insulation to be put into a home. So in the past, you might have seen those, 4 to 6 inch fiberglass battens that go in the walls. Well, now they're looking at stud separated walls. So the exterior wall and the interior wall have a thermal break in between them. In other words, there's not a way for heat to transfer or coldness to transfer. And then it's 18 inches of insulation in between them. And so just, from one aspect, you could start with that and say, okay, new construction, there's new methods, new materials. If you look at the walls of most of these houses that are built in the 1600s to 1800s, they don't have 18 inches of wall space to put insulation. So there's one end of it. There's the energy that goes into and out of the house, right? So decreasing the amount of energy that a house uses to keep it comfortable. And then there's where you get that energy from to keep it comfortable. So solar panels, geothermal, solar gain, right? The way that the windows are positioned relative to the sun versus the overhang of the roof. In the summer, the sun goes up higher and doesn't heat the house as much. In the winter, the sun is a little lower and can go right in the windows. So there's like a particular way of building that could be that way. If you already own a home, then you can change things like how the energy is coming in, even as simply as calling up the national grid that we have in Beverly and requesting that your energy be green energy. It costs, I think, 1 cent more per kilowatt hour, but it really sends the message to the electric company that you value having green sources of energy. That's sort of the two big ones. Windows, of course, but then also you could green the outside of your home. You lawns, like you mentioned, have are full of chemicals that are unhealthy, not only for the birds and the bees, but for kids that are playing in the lawn. It also takes a lot of energy to maintain a lawn, um, and it precludes the lawn being useful for the native animals. So the pollinators, the rabbits, the chipmunks, it's like a desert. The green, it looks good to us, the nice green lawn, but it's actually a desert for most wildlife. Nothing grows there except grass. It's full of poisonous chemicals that leach into the waterways and go down the sewers and then get into the fish. So greening a house really, it's could be from the construction all the way to the landscaping. Um, I didn't even mention like plumbing, right? You could have plumbing fixtures that are low flow. Um, I think that's mandatory since the early 2000s, maybe even late 90s. But check your house. You may be pumping out more water than you need through your faucets and shower heads.
Yeah, I've heard that toilets, especially if you can,
Yeah,
I mean, I basically have decided I'm not flushing every time. I flush every three
yeah.
times. And
There you
I've
go.
heard it uses so much more than we think it does.
Yeah. In the old days, it was something like 5 gallons. I think they don't make toilets like that anymore, but that's a lot of water every time. Especially because we're all working from home now. So,
Yep. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. And I know about the low flow fixtures. So one thing that I do is I have a really great water filter on my shower. And I was like, you know what? If I ever want to take a bath, I have to use my shower head because that's the filtered water.
yeah,
But the thing is, I have to turn up the temperature a lot more than I would initially be comfortable with because it takes forever for it to
yes,
fill the tub. So I'm like, okay,
yes,
that's proof that it's low
it's
flow.
proof. Yeah, exactly. And people don't realize, I mean, it adds up. It's not, massively expensive necessarily, but it does, you will see water savings over time
Yeah,
because of it.
I hardly use any. I mean, my water bill is so low, it's almost comical. Now that I'm watering my lawn a teeny bit, we'll see what happens. But
Yeah,
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 I've been
yeah,
very
yeah.
pleasantly surprised. So
That's great.
let's say somebody is wanting to green up their home. They're sort of in
Yeah,
I mean, from an overall standpoint, maybe a tough spot because they're probably paying way more for or at least somewhat more for their energy cost, than they really need to. Like their heating bills are scary, their air conditioning bills are scary, like they're
right.
losing everything through lack of insulation, just the money is going out the door. And also they're freaked out about the environment. Where should
Yeah,
they go to get information first to help with this?
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great question because there's so much out there. Like if you Google greening your home, you're going to get so much information, and you don't know who to trust, honestly. And I'm not going to use scare tactics here, but there are like national chains of things that are they're basically middleman, and they just cost more than they should in order to help you. So I would always say, find, well, Green Beverly is a perfect place to start because we're full of people that are invested in the community. They're not here to make a buck necessarily. Um, And then I would say, talk to real estate agents that you know. Often they're dealing with a lot of people over a long time. And so they can tell you what's worked in the past and maybe making what may be working in the future. And of course, talk to friends and family and see what their personal on the ground experiences are for this stuff. I think most people are going to tell you to start to also call Mass Save. They're a program that's funded by your electric and gas bills, and so it's for the taking. Don't be afraid to call. It's going to seem like too good of a deal to be true, but it's actually you've been paying for it through your electric and gas anyway. But essentially, what they'll do is they'll do a home energy audit, and that's sort of a great place to start. Stop the leaking of the bucket, right? So your house is like a bucket of energy. Get them to come in. They'll do an energy audit and basically give you some prices and some concept of insulation for your house. And then they can give you some deals on windows. If you want to upgrade your water heater or if you want to upgrade your furnace, there's actual deals that you can see online. And then each one has different contractors that do it so that the National Grid isn't sending out their own people to put in insulation. Different companies will do it. So ask around, see who's been good recently. And yeah, so friends and family, people that are at the crux of it, like real estate agents, or Green Beverly, who has a lot of folks who are sort of interested in greening. They've sort of dedicated their lives to greening Beverly.
Right. And so we've talked a lot about, things coming into the home like heat and cooling and water and all that stuff. And I'm also curious about somebody who cares about how they manage their own waste, and is there anything you want to add to that to help somebody be greener about how they manage all the waste that's produced in a home?
Oh, for sure. And we're really lucky here in Beverly, actually. We've got two, just off the top of my head, two great resources that we can um, access. One, well, three actually, because I know we've worked really hard to get single stream recycling here in Beverly. That's a great one to make sure that you're putting all your recyclables in our single stream system. And there's no limit on every week how much you can put in. We also have Black Earth here that are the compost guys or compost company. So any food waste you have can go there. And then we also have Unpacked Living, which is a great, I mean, I don't know of any other town that has one of these types of stores, but essentially it's a bulk goods store. So you bring in your own container and you can get laundry detergent in it and then just reuse that same container over and over again, saving tons of plastic waste. It could be, they also do, hand soap and I mean, everything you can imagine at your house. And they also have reusable containers that you can buy there that are free of BPA stuff that are,
And they also have
glass and
free
things.
containers. I mean, they
They have
have
free containers. Yeah.
people's glassware, from herb bottles or just anything. And people just leave
Right.
them there instead of recycling, and you just get them for free.
It's so great. It's really a great resource for that aspect.
They even have gift bags. You just get gift bags to give gifts in. And it's like, well, what do I do with this? It's perfectly usable. You bring them
Yeah.
to the Unpacked Living and they take them. And then you can buy them if you ever need a new one for like $1, if that.
Oh, awesome.
It's almost like a library,
That's so
for,
great. Yeah. Because
yeah.
these things last forever. Plastics and that sort of things. They at least last longer than your single use.
Yeah, and there's one thing I learned recently. I was looking for a place to get olive oil. I don't know about you, but I would say the most glass that I produce as a human comes
Yeah.
from olive oil bottles, like
Yeah.
just, salad oil, cooking oil, like whatever. And there's just so much glass and it's mildly horrifying. So I just found out from the waste reduction committee in town that you can get I guess you would call it bulk olive oil at a place in downtown Gloucester. So I just want
Yeah.
to put that
Gloucester.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention it. Yeah, they're right on Main Street there.
Yeah,
Great
so what I
spot.
would do is get like 4 or 5 bottles, go up once every couple of months, totally worth
Yeah.
the trip.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
you know it's good olive oil too. You know, it's not been sitting in a grocery store shopping place for months, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, you know, okay, you have this other question and you got to lead me through this, which
Yeah.
is, what is something that most people don't think, like something that would surprise them about at the intersection of homes and caring for the environment?
Yeah.
Like, talk to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at a basic level, the environment is land, right? And so we as humans make decisions about how to use land. And a lot of those decisions are made at a town level or a state level, but we don't understand how much control we have over it. They're just sort of there and we go, oh, yeah, those are the rules. But like for instance, do you ever think about why your house is a certain distance from the street or a certain distance from the neighbors, or why you go into a neighborhood and all the lot sizes are the same? Those are called zoning laws. Um, and that's why sort of commercial areas are relegated to one spot, living areas are to another. Different areas will have different size lots depending on how far away from city centers they are and things. So, you know, in America, we had a lot of land. And so after World War II and other times, we just said, okay, great, just build houses, go down the road, build houses. We've got automobiles, people can get to these houses, no problem. Well, that actually takes up rather a lot of land, you know. And if
The
you wanted,
understatement of the
yeah,
century.
it takes a really lot of land. So if you're, trying to go to get groceries or something, you might drive for 10 minutes. Well, that's, because you're trying to get past all the other houses to get to the commercial area. Or if you needed to get to work, your commercial areas are really substantially separate from your living areas. And, if you look around at other countries, that's just not the case. That's just not how things were made. And there, I could talk ad nauseum about this, but the ramifications are basically that suburbs are very expensive places for towns because they've got to send sewer and water out, a mile, and they're covering, X amount of homes. Whereas if you're in a sort of denser area, that same money serves a lot more people. And it takes up space that could otherwise be used for wildlife or for nature preserves, right? So there's lots of levels the suburbs are sort of problematic from an environmental standpoint, um, both economically for towns that now don't have money to invest in other infrastructure that might be more green. We're lucky here in Beverly to have some solar panels over parking lots, but and a geothermal being discussed for the library, but that's not the case in a lot of other places on the North Shore that don't have the sort of density that we have. So I just always challenge people to think, okay, when you're thinking about voting for changing zoning laws, or you hear about a development coming to a place, it's not just about housing for people, which we need desperately as well on the North Shore, but it has some real environmental impacts as well. And that allowing for greater density in more areas, especially mixed use, really has positive environmental impacts.
Amen. Yeah, I love that. And I used to be in a choir in Berkeley, California, and there was a guy in it who was one of the smartest people I've ever met. And he was an urban planning
Yeah,
graduate with like a master's degree in urban planning. And he would just harp on that. He would arrive on his bicycle
yeah,
to rehearsal, and then that's what he was passionate about. It's like, can we just have more mixed use and
yes,
buildings and just higher buildings. So
yeah,
then buses would make more sense because there would
right,
be more of a need for them. And then we could eventually upgrade them. I mean, it's the whole European model. My parents are
yeah,
both from European countries. And so I've been on Swiss trains, I've been on Swedish trains. It is night and day different.
yeah,
You want
yes.
to be on those vehicles.
Oh
They
yeah,
are cool. They are
they're,
cool, they're beautiful, and they're efficient.
yeah, and they're useful. They fit how you want to live your life.
Yeah.
And I think here, I mean, ask anybody, do you want to spend 2 hours a day driving in a car to and from your job?
Yeah.
No. let's fix this.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes.
So,
And so it's always the question of where do you even begin? And when you say zoning laws, I mean, I just am gonna probably get more involved in my ward, right? I'm in
yeah,
Ward 2 in Beverly. And
yeah,
so I probably like I know that the meetings are happening on a certain night in the week. And I know that that's probably a great way to start getting involved on a town level.
yeah,
Also the waste reduction committee. I mean, you just sort of start dipping your toe in. But if you were to say to somebody who was asking like, all right, fine, how do I find out about zoning stuff and get educated so I could
yeah.
even ask for the right things or be engaged in a way that's helpful? What would you
Right.
say to them?
Yeah, there's a couple places to go. One is the council meeting. I believe it's live streamed every month in Beverly, and often things will come up there that get decided and voted on. So, for instance, we just had the accessory dwelling unit um, ordinance passed in Beverly, and that was a huge deal. And a lot of people, like Echo and other community groups, were advocating and in dialogue with the city about how those laws should be written. So if you know, in some way, you just have to catch wind of it, but it's all on an agenda on the web on the city website. And if you go to the city council meetings, most things come through there.
Okay.
Another place to go is the zoning meetings. The zoning meetings are once a month, or the city planning meetings. Um, yes, so you know, just get involved. Even if you're aware of things and can speak confidently and accurately about what's going on in the town and why some things might be good or better than others, I think that's a great place to start. And then start talking to your neighbors, educating people about it.
Yeah, I'm just like holding my breath for when all that development is done by the bridge near the cove and
Yeah,
like the traffic that's gonna spill onto Runtool and it's
yeah.
just gonna be, we'll see.
Well,
We'll see how,
hopefully, I mean, that part of this whole transit-oriented development is that right now, people who are taking the train into Boston to work from Beverly have to drive to the train station because there's no housing near the, or not as much housing as there could be near the train station. And so if you get, you know, if you get people that are can take the train in or a bus or
that would
something,
be amazing.
then your traffic actually gets alleviated. You know, you can't tell people, hey, we're going to do, you know, have a nice commercial downtown, but we're not going to let anyone live near it. Well, of course, you're encouraging traffic. You know, put some houses near it, and now that traffic can has a place to has a reason not to exist. It doesn't exist anymore because you can just live right near it.
Yep. I'm one of those people, by the way. I can walk to the train
Yeah,
station. It's awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
And one other, like I walked to my body shop repair place and then I
Yeah,
walked to my rental car place. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't need a ride because I
You
can
don't.
walk. It was a
You
good
can
moment.
walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's. I mean, that's the cities that are the oldest in the world are the most walkable.
Yeah.
Human beings just it's going to trend towards that as long as we don't actively stop it.
Yep. We kind of have to.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
have to.
Well, Nathan, thank you so much for, helping someone who might be at the front end of wanting to green up their home. And so now they know who to talk to, where to go,
Yeah,
and some first steps to take. So thank you so much for sharing all that.
you're welcome. Thanks for interviewing. Thanks for putting it together.